We are back outside on the deck. It was not a rain out last Tuesday, but we did have to move inside because of the raindrops. But no, not today. It's a nice day today. We are live on a Twins Tuesday out here at Floyd's in Victoria, and I think it's going to be a glorious afternoon out here on the deck. They got a band coming up at 6 o'clock. We're going to be here till just before 6, and of course the Twins are out of town. But it is a good time to be a Minnesota sports fan. You've got the Wolves with the number 1 pick. You've got Adrian Peterson deciding today that he does in fact love his Minnesota Vikings. It was just just a day or two ago he was tweeting about whatever. It didn't seem like there was a lot of love, but no, there's love. And the first place Twins are going to be at bat tonight. Let's go around the horn. Brandon.
Good evening, everybody. Adrian Peterson, you were talking about. He's got 12.75 million reasons to want to be back in purple, and so there's no doubt that was going to happen if they stayed at an impasse, which they did. You know, teams don't really have the ability to take him on anyway right now, so he didn't really have any reason to do anything other than show up.
But that was so weird with his tweets and all that little Twitter rant.
Yeah, it was a little strange, but you know what? He's got a larger point that I think we could probably all be somewhat okay with. It's just he's not really the best messenger at this time with where he's at in his contract and where he's at in his mental state and how the rest of the league perceives him.
Waiting to jump in here on the deck, we have Patrick Donnelly. Patrick, you a Viking Adrian fan?
Oh, well, I don't know about a fan, but need a little more boost here. Yeah, I don't know about a fan. I've covered the Vikings off and on over the years as well.
There you go. You got to talk into that weird part of the mic. I know it's unusual.
There we go. All right. So over the years, I've done a lot of Vikings work for Associated Press and Viking Update and a few other things.
Did you see this ending differently? Did you see it ending with Peterson
I didn't.
Gone and playing for Dallas or something?
No, because I think the Vikings really think that they've got a shot this year, and
I think they do too now.
Yeah, and they weren't going to do anything that was going to harm those chances. And unless somebody blew them away with 2 first-round picks as an offer, they weren't going to get that. Then no. And the thing that amazed me was that everyone I heard lots of people saying, "Wow, Peterson has all the leverage. He holds all the cards." No, he doesn't. He didn't have any leverage. He held no cards.
He tried to get public opinion, and that did not work.
Not at all.
The draft was the witching hour for me. Once nothing happened there, and teams made their picks, and there's just no room for teams to take them. Once you get to that point where you're starting to finalize your roster going into OTAs and now into training camp in the upcoming months, there's teams that would make room for Adrian Peterson, I'm sure. But at 30 years old, coming off a year off too, it was a matter of cost versus what the Vikings needed in return to make it make sense for them. There just wasn't a good fit out there.
Well, a couple of things. First of all, Patrick Dishy.
Yep.
Where's our buckets of beer here?
We got to get them.
Is the beer special still happening out here?
Beer specials is
You got to talk closer into your thing, too.
Yeah, this fun mic here.
Where's your...
my volume here.
There you go.
Yeah, we got some fun specials out here. Actually, there's some new specials. They're running...
Nude specials?
New specials on chicken wings. $11 for a dozen wings, $19 for 2 dozen wings, $27 for 3 dozen wings.
Well, why wouldn't you just do the 3 dozen and make a game of it?
You might as well. They got a bunch of different sauces, teriyaki,
go big or
barbecue.
Go home.
Exactly. $5 mojitos and $5 24-ounce red stripes as well out at Floyd's here. So.
And that's part of the Twins Tuesday party.
Twins Tuesday party. Tell the bartenders they got a button set up in the system. They'll give you those deals.
People slowly coming in. This is usually a hop in place here for the happy hour. But again, go get us the bucket of beers, dude.
I should.
I promised the gentleman down front here that I would give him a free beer. Look, he's got a full bucket of pull tabs. They all look to be losers. But I promised him a free beer if he had a Twins question.
We'll get our buckets.
All right.
All right.
So, Patrick Donnelly, you mentioned some of the stuff you've been doing. You said you've been a freelance writer around the beat.
Yeah, I've been freelancing since probably about 2000, so like 15 years off and on for various outlets here in Twin Cities and nationally as well. But most of my stuff locally here has been with the Associated Press or with MLB.com. That's
nice.
where I've sort of wound up crossing paths with the Twins the most often. So Brandon said, "Are you interested?" I said, "Absolutely. Let's talk some Twins."
You heard about the Wings deal, and
Yeah.
you said, "Get me out there. Get me
For
out there
sure.
to Floyd's." Are you from this neck of the woods at all?
Grew up in New Ulm, Minnesota,
Wow.
a great baseball town, and I played baseball my own darn self until, well, probably up until 2000 when I started freelancing and just didn't have time anymore. But yeah, I played a good 15 years after high school even, and it's in my blood. I've been a baseball nut since day one.
Kind of like Brandon. Brandon's got a game this evening, and he is evidently crushing it at the plate.
Oh, yeah, 1 for 14, I think, to start the season or something like that. So, off to a bit of a frigid start to say. And then the one thing I wanted to ask you too, Patrick, what's your day job? I mean, I know we missed crossing paths at the same company at one point, but I know you're doing something different, and it just escapes me what exactly it is.
Well, I'm editing children's educational books right now. It's actually the kind of books that you'd find in school libraries. So the company's called Redline Editorial. They're based in Burnsville, and we work with publishers to produce a series of books on all kinds of subjects, mostly kind of kindergarten through 6th grade age level, but we do actually all ages. That's sort of where our sweet spot is, and I do a lot of their sports content. So just today I was editing a book on the greatest upsets in sports history, and I've got one coming up on tomorrow. I'll be doing one on Olympic trivia. I mean, it's just all kinds of different things.
Will Caitlyn and Bruce Jenner be in Olympic trivia?
That's a good question. Might be too new, but we're doing a book on transgender issues in a complete different series. So Caitlyn will be in that one.
Welcome to the new world.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We covered just about everything.
Before we skip ahead, what in the book then? What are some of the greatest upsets in sports history?
Okay, well, baseball was the '88 Dodgers upsetting the A's with Kirk Gibson hitting the home run. I can't believe what I just saw. So Jack Buck, that kind of thing.
Off Dennis Eckersley, if I recall correctly.
Correct. And the '54 Giants swept the Indians, who had won 111 games and were a juggernaut. The Yankees had just won like 5 straight World Series, and the Indians held them off. Everyone thought they were just going to cruise through the World Series, and instead, no. The Giants, Willie Mays, knocked them off. Trying to think, were there any other baseball ones? I don't think we had any more baseball in that, but there, you had your kind of standard ones, your Miracle on Ice, and the New York Giants upsetting the Patriots in the Super Bowl, and all kinds like that. It's a lot of fun.
There weren't too many worst to firsts like the Twins did in sports, are there?
Or the Braves, yeah.
Yeah, 90 to 91 when they were both in last place in 1990 and first place scoring off in the World Series in 91.
Mm-hmm. I've actually pitched that as a book option for our publishers. Hopefully one of them will come up with that. I think a worst to first series or book would be interesting as part of a series. So we'll see.
Well, and hasn't that been on like MLB Network is the best World Series of all time, or like the top 3 or something like that too in recent years?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean I think people pretty much view that as the best of all. Yeah, it's at least top 3. But around here, of course, we're a little biased.
Yeah, no kidding.
But what was it? 5 out of the 7 games were decided in the final at bat, and there was really only one game that was a blowout. And
so cool.
Yeah, it was a great series.
Can't wait for this year's World Series when the Twins do it again. I can't wait. That'll be awesome.
Against the Braves. No, maybe not.
Well, we're on that subject too. We should dive into the resiliency that this team has shown while you're talking about World Series. Maybe not too far down the road, but no losing streak longer than 2 games since the opening week of the season. What have you seen specifically, Patrick, that has been different about these guys? I'm assuming you spent at least some time around the club besides stringing for other teams too. Have you seen anything different either on TV or in person when you've been watching games that really characterizes this team as different than last season and the seasons before that?
Well, some of it is just naturally guys maturing, and they just weren't at the point where they were able to do what they're doing this year in years past. The guy I think about mostly is Trevor Plouffe, who right now he's one of their tougher outs. He will grind out an at-bat. He will make every pitcher work. And he was a relatively easy out, in years past. Dozier's another guy who's really improved his plate discipline, and even if he's not drawing walks, he's making guys work. So I think some of it is just the maturation process. It's guys getting to that level at the same time, and then you have to throw in the Hunter thing, the Hunter leadership. I do think that Torrey,
he's great.
We say leader. You can kind of scoff at leadership at times because it's not quantifiable. It's really hard to decide. to point to something and say, well, that's definitely because of him. But just because it's not quantifiable doesn't mean that it's not there. And there's something to it. Whether it's, well, his 800 OPS or whatever he's doing right now doesn't hurt either. But the dance parties and just being the go-to guy in the clubhouse when the media comes in, knowing that he's going to be there and answering questions, and the other players can sort of follow that lead. I just think it speeds up that maturation process. And you got a mature team, you've got some mature players. They're not going to get as down over one loss. They're not going to let, like Friday night's game when they jumped out on Burley 4-0 and then basically didn't get a base runner for the next 8 innings, and they lost it on a home run to Chris Colabello of all people in the 9th inning. And you think, oh God, here we go, tailspin. And instead they come back and they win 2 one-run games on the weekend.
And not only just tailspin, it's like, oh, is the party over, period. Here we go, that's it. That was a fun ride for the season. But no, they come back.
Perkins' face after that home run to Colabello was just priceless. I think he was still obviously smarting from the pitch call, or the strikes and balls to Russell Martin before that. Now, you'd mentioned to the maturation process. I think some people would have been quick to say, and I was probably guilty of it too, you're basically bringing back the same exact team. Well, you can't encapsulate a guy and where he's at in his mental development year to year. So maybe Trevor Plouffe was a little more immature 2 years ago, and he's kind of rounded into that. Now at this point now, if he's 0-2, he's still going to give you a competent at bat, whereas a guy like maybe Danny Santana won't. And that's the difference in where they are in their evolution as accomplished ball players. So I think, you touched on Torrey Hunter too. I think what he has done for guys like Dozier and Plouffe has helped them feel more comfortable with where they stand as leaders. Not only vocal, because I'm not sure that anybody's terribly vocal besides Torrey on the team, but as leaders with their play. Like Joe Mauer, if he's a leader and if he's been a leader, has been with his play over the last 10, 11 seasons. Whatever he's doing, if that effect can extend beyond however long Torrey Hunter is under contract as a player with the Twins, is an underrated factor when you think about how much they spent on him. I know everybody thought, it's way too much money for a 39 going on 40 right fielder. Defense is shaky. The bat could slow down at any time. Mm-hmm. So I think you got to give kudos, even if Torrey Hunter falls flat and ends with like a 720 OPS, and maybe his career is over after this season. It was a calculated move, and so far it's paid off, and there's a lot of things he's already given to this team that you can't take away.
Absolutely.
Well, what's paid off was my bitching, because now we have 2 buckets of beer, the Coors Special, now in front of us. And, folks, if you're coming out here, we do want you to come on up to the table, and we'll give you one of these beers if you got a Twins question. The bullpen seems to be doing all right as well.
And
surprisingly so.
Yeah, because at the beginning of the year, that was a huge question mark, and there are a lot of new faces out there and a lot of more suspects than prospects. But again, an underrated, I think, addition is Eddie Guardado as the pitching coach or the bullpen coach, because he's another guy that can keep you loose and help you put your mistakes in your past and forget about them and move on. And I think he does. Obviously, he also he can be a shining example of how to be a gritty major league pitcher with the 87 mile an hour fastball and still get guys out. So he obviously has something to teach them as well. But I think he's just a great example of how to approach the game mentally and emotionally, and that helps.
That's the name that Torrey Hunter said immediately when I kind of cornered him. It was a day game at the end of the Boston series when they finished the sweep. And I had kind of an exclusive spot to talk to him, and he says, Eddie Guardado, man. He kept repeating Eddie's name. He said, he's been just a godsend for that bullpen. Because I said, well, do you think Paul Molitor's a bit of a bullpen whisperer? And I've been saying that basically ad nauseum wherever I've been asked, because I think he's pushing all the right buttons. But he said, you know what, Eddie's out there. Not only is he approachable, but he's been in all the situations, whether it was because he put himself into those situations as a guy who was kind of a cardiac kid out there. But he's got the advice that these kids, and not even necessarily kids, some of these guys are over their 30s, I guess, but if they haven't been in those situations before, they've got a sounding board and a guy who can tell them exactly what they need to hear to get them out of it. I still do adhere or believe in the idea that Molitor has been plug and play with these guys in the right situation. Some guys throwing 2 innings, other guys getting 1 batter out, and it's been the same guys. Aaron Thompson might go 2 innings one night and then face 1 lefty the next. he's going to have to be until some of these kids come up when he starts getting some bullpen guys that aren't going to be matchup guys, and that's just what he's got to do.
I think it's kind of cool that Torrey Hunter, even though he's not exposed to what's going on in the bullpen, has that insight. I wonder how he gets that insight.
I think he and Eddie still hang out. I mean, they're basically the same era.
Same
Eddie
generation.
Came up, Eddie came up a little bit before him, but at the same time, I think that's his guy. And, so he's obviously keen with it. And it's kind of funny. I saw Eddie. He was hanging out in the clubhouse, and he and Torrey were kind of ripping on one of the PR guys, and then Eduardo Escobar started lipping off to Eddie from across the clubhouse. I don't know if it was in Spanish or not. And so anyway, Eddie yelled at Kurt, and he said, "Hold him down for me." And Guardado went over and just pummeled Escobar. I mean, all in good fun. Just a buddies, kind of wrestling around in the clubhouse. And he left Escobar flat on the ground. So, I mean, it's such a loose and different vibe. I mean, to compare it was like going from a morgue to a birthday party. And that's where it's at right now.
So last year it was a bit of a morgue, huh?
God, the last 4 years. Now, winning is going to make things more fun. There's that. So, I mean...
But Gardy, everyone loved Gardy.
2010 was a fun clubhouse. I mean, you weren't, I don't know how much time you spent
Very
there.
little.
Yeah, but that was a fun clubhouse. That was, Tommy was kind of a goofy guy, and you had still had Kadire and Nathan, and you had some good veterans in there. But once those guys started moving on, that clubhouse just got quieter and quieter and quieter. And they love Gardy, but Gardy never set foot in the clubhouse from what we could see. He would go into his manager's office, and he just kind of let the players do their thing.
And to that point too is if you wanted to compare and contrast Molitor and Gardenhire in terms of how they address things from what we can see as media, what we're allowed to take in is Gardenhire had a very hangout vibe in the clubhouse with reporters. I thought, sit on the couch and chit chat. And once the cameras are gone, it was no holds barred. Paul Molitor is very businesslike. His mantra, if Gardy's was battle your tail off, I would say Paul Molitor's goes about his business. He says that about everybody, or goes about. He's very businesslike, and he's just very curt but detailed, intelligent answers, very well thought out. But you don't get a warm, we're hanging out with Skip vibe. It's this guy's got a job to do, and he's going to move on to whatever's next after he talks to you.
That to me sounds like that's the clubhouse that should be quiet and well behaved, because our leader is so quiet and reserved, whereas Guardsy is more of the good old boy. You would think that would be the raucous clubhouse.
But you know what? When Dad puts the clamps down, then when Dad's not in the room, you cut loose a little bit. So I think that's they kind of feel like, hey, we're getting away with a little bit something. We're having some fun here, and then when Molitor comes in, I'm sure it's professional. And everyone, right.
I think I've spied Molitor in on some of those handshakes too. Getting in on punking a guy after a home run or something. I think he's still. Physically, I think he still looks kind of like he did when he was a player. He was never physically imposing, but he's kept in really good shape.
Right.
He's obviously aged a bit, but I think he's still one of the guys. And I think it's tough love when it needs to be tough. It's instruction when instruction needs to be done. And who can instruct you better than a Hall of Famer with more than 3,000 career hits? So, I really wanted them to hire Joe Madden. I think you and I had discussed that.
Absolutely.
But I think they did the next best thing. It wasn't the easy. It wasn't the lame choice. The lame duck inside job. I think they legitimately interviewed these guys with an even playing field, and Molitor just won. And he's a fantastic details guy.
But I think they gave Torrey Lovullo every chance too, and I really do think that they considered the pros and cons of both those guys, and I don't think they shied away from Lovullo because he was an outside voice. I don't think it was just, this is the easiest way to do it. We'll just take Molitor. I do think
the homers will love him. Right. It makes sense.
I do think that they think he's he's legitimately the right pick. And now, how long he's going to be there? Who knows? He's 58, 59,
60 next year. Yep.
60 next year. Yeah. So maybe the theory that you hear kicked around a lot is that they've got Minkiewicz, who's knocking on the door, and he's going to be a big league manager someday. Maybe Molitor does this for 4 or 5 years, maybe brings up Minkiewicz as his bench coach for a couple.
As he's following the kids that he was with at Florida Fort Myers last year and now
Right.
Chattanooga.
Right, and then eventually Minkiewicz takes over, which was kind of the Tom Kelly plan in the 80s, when, in 82, when that rookie-laden team with Herbeck and Laudner and Viola and Gaetti, and those guys lost 102 games, and they had TK was their manager in Orlando the year before, and he kind of followed him on up.
So, okay, and I wanted to jump into the sustainability of this team. Is this the 1984 of that run? Because in 84, 2 years before I was born, I didn't want to say it, but you guys are both looking at me.
Yeah.
They were.
You remember it well, do you?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they were in it basically till
My first year of broadcasting that year.
The last week.
Second year of broadcasting, actually, that year.
So they were in it till basically the last week of the season.
Yeah.
You had a young Kent Herbeck, a young
Rookie Puckett.
Did Puckett, yeah, AK-84. And so you obviously had that vibe, and then it took a couple years for them to get back there, including, I think, wasn't 86 a pretty rough year?
They bottomed out again. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I can't imagine what that would be like. But could this be the 84, or is this more of a 2001? Is this a 2000? What do you see as far as the evolution and where they are in the win curve?
It feels more like 2001 to me. Like, this is the year they're knocking on the door, and I think they're really close. 84 came out of nowhere. They had a ton of prospects, but they also had no pitching. And
Was Ron Davis on that team?
Davis was on that
He's the
team, and
closer?
that was the big thing. You know, Davis blew so many saves in his 3 or 4 years where he was the closer, and they got rid of him in 86, and it was the definition of addition by subtraction. And that was June 86, I think, when they made that trade, and they were already too far gone to salvage that season. But they got rid of him, and they had Blyleven and Viola, and you could just sort of feel things starting to turn. And then 87 was, all the pieces were in place. Right. So I think this,
Exactly.
I guess to me, this feels, if anything, it's more like 2001, where you've kind of got these guys who've come up together along the way, but they're not the biggest stars in the franchise. They're not the Buxton and Sano guys yet, but you still got your Doziers and your Ploufs.
But if 2001 didn't have a Buxton and Sano, maybe that was Mauer and Morneau coming up beyond that. So
Yeah.
you could tie some parallels. I like doing that, but I also hate it because you get too tied up in comps. Like, I think the Royals teams right now kind of remind me of the early 2000s Twins with the pitching, defense. Not exactly a beat you down with superstars offense, but you get those comparisons and it gets a little too convenient, and you kind of get free and easy with those kind of things. But back to what we were talking about was the sustainability of this start. You read a new piece every day, basically like a whack-a-mole, trying to knock these Twins fans down, saying, this can't keep up, this can't keep going. What are Twins fans expecting here? And I think they're so beaten down by the last few years that they're still cautiously optimistic. I don't think that this is go out and buy playoff tickets as soon as they come out kind of deal. But for me, I'm going to be the proverbial cloud in the sky, is that I don't believe it's sustainable. I believe there are too many good things going on that can't be repeated. I'd like to hear what you think in terms of the sustainability of this run.
Well, to me, the
Boo on Brandon. Boo.
I've gotten that a lot on Twitter lately.
No, I believe it. To me, the only real unsustainable part of the season is they're hitting with runners in scoring position or hitting with runners on base. I mean, they're bunching their hits, and that's great. Can you continue to win if you're only scoring, if you're putting up a couple crooked innings a night, but that's it? Or I would much rather see an offense that would get you one here, two there, one there, and just keep dinging at you.
Well, Brandon, sorry to interrupt you,
No, it's
Patrick,
good.
but Brandon, who's had a year that's more than what you expected? Like, who's having a good year?
And
I don't think anybody.
to that
really.
point,
The whole team.
Well, together,
Right,
but
as a team they have, but
individually.
individually
it's one of
there
those
isn't,
the
really.
sum is greater than the parts situations.
Right.
Now, for me, on the pitching staff, hear me out. You've got Kyle Gibson, 4.4 strikeouts per 9 with a 2.61 ERA. Mike Pelfrey, 4.5 strikeouts per 9, 2.77 ERA. Those guys both have FIPS over 4. That's fielding independent pitching. It takes all the things that a pitcher can control out of the equation, or takes everything that they can't control out of the equation, and basically says, hey, Mike Pelfrey should have an ERA over 4. Kyle Gibson should also have an ERA over 4. Now, consequently, Phil Hughes is about where he should be, but Trevor May should have an ERA that's 2 runs lower. So the shoe does fit both ways. It goes on both feet. I just think that I don't believe you can continue to get this kind of quote-unquote dominance from Mike Pelfrey and from Kyle Gibson.
And you're probably not, but you're also getting Irv Santana back in a month, and that's also something to consider.
TC Bear is looking good this year.
Boy, is he ever. He's
having
just
a
hitting
good year.
rockets.
He's having a good year.
I think we're getting the universal signal that we got to take a pause. So when we come back, let's
Wait, one sec. First, we got a plug. Come on out here to Floyd's in Victoria.
Exactly.
We're live right here in the patio. We got the beers out here. I see the guy's got the grill going. You don't have anyone. You got to get busy. You need some folks. He's waiting for you. You got the grilled wings with the specials that are going. What do you get? The list is $11 for a dozen, 19 for
two dozen. Yep.
27. That math is crazy.
For 3 dozen
But
wings.
the math is accurate, unlike before when we were talking about the bucket of beers promotion.
But our guy is waiting for you, and sure, now a couple of clouds have moved in, but it's nice and warm and starting to feel a little tropical. It's summer, for God's sakes. It's happening here in Minnesota, and it's Twins Tuesday out here on the deck.
Cast with Jason and Molly.
I'm Cliffbridge Hop Dish.
It's Pub Talk from a Minnesotan perspective.
I'm always really proud of where I'm from. I'm super proud of Minnesota, and I think Minneapolis is awesome. I think St. Paul is awesome. I think they're a really awesome cultural epicenter.
With great local guests.
So the other voice you hear in the room today is Jerry Fagerberg from the City Pages. Talk about the official Minnesota Tall Boy, which your piece is on the cover of the City Pages today.
It is on the cover, came out today.
Talking movies.
All right, you saw Boyhood. I need to hear what you thought.
Oh, man.
Wow.
Sports.
A guy who was undrafted knew what was coming.
And everything else you talk about at the pub.
Let's not pretend like we know what we're talking about.
Well, what do you think I do every show?
The Minnesota Pubcast with Jason McGovern and Molly Burke. Listen at mnpubcast.com or subscribe on iTunes.
We want to just find meaning in life.
The term foodie can sometimes come across as a tickle pretentious. BT and Lydia are here to demystify the term and reclaim it for the sake of good food. Their weekly podcast brings in fellow foodies and culture creators from the Twin Cities to talk about all things food. Find this duo only on the Alive and Social Network.
Get pumped. Good song.
Wednesday, huh, Rusty? You're going Wednesday?
Mick Jagger's already in town. There are Mick Jagger sightings around town. The big concert tomorrow night at TCF Stadium. So I know we don't want it to rain here on the patio party on Twins Tuesday here at Floyd's. Really don't want it to rain tomorrow night at TCF Stadium. The problem is these guys are so old that I think a few raindrops they would go, yeah, that's it, we're done.
It reminds me of you two. We've discussed that before.
Yeah.
It poured in 2011.
Halfway through the show.
Great show.
But those guys are younger, and it actually added to the visual
They're
of that
Irish,
show.
too. They're Irish. They're tougher.
The visuals on the big screen when the rain was coming down, it looked like they were shooting a music video. Bullet the blue sky, and then lightning shows up and all that stuff.
Spoken like a true Irishman on the other side of the table there, by the way, Patrick.
But, by the way, we're out here in Victoria, which means we're really close to Excelsior, which means every time the Stones come to town, we hear the story about Mr. Jimmy from Excelsior, inspired, you can't always get what you want. We've been having fun with that on Twitter. Some of the buddies of mine, we've been tweeting, what was the hashtag we're using? It's hashtag MN Stones Sources. So it's been things like, I just tweeted one today. In 1965, a 45-year-old Sid Hartman came up to Mick Jagger and said, "What a drag it is getting old." The light went on above Mick's head.
Perfect. So, I love that kind of creativity.
Because that story is just a story.
Well, I would assume so. I don't know.
I've interviewed Mick Jagger.
And he has. I was wondering if anyone had ever asked him.
Yeah, he does not recall that was ever true.
Well, that's defensible.
And I did the story, and then I don't talk about it anymore because everyone loves the idea of that story. And I remember I've met Mr. Jimmy before he passed away. He was a gentleman who was borderline homeless, who kind of had a little bit of mental illness and wandered around the streets of Excelsior.
Local character.
Yeah, dressed in a top hat occasionally and wandered around the streets. And so he was a well-loved character. And his claim to fame that he almost repeated, like Rain Man memory. And that was when I met Mick Jagger. Definitely did. And I'm like, actually, you didn't.
Actually, you did. Well, my favorite part about the story, too, is everyone says they were at that show in Excelsior.
Yeah.
There was like 50 people at that show.
No, there was 300.
300, but everyone
300
says
people,
they were there.
just over 300. And, yeah, you'll meet 10,000 people who will say, oh, yeah, I was at that show.
Same thing with the Beatles in Met Stadium. You know, I think the Met was the only venue not to sell out.
There were two that
venues that didn't sell out in
out.
1965 when they toured.
Yeah.
And the Met was one of them, and yet, 100,000 people claim that they were there.
And I'm a huge Beatle fan, and I just can't believe I never knew this. The Beatles played Red Rock Canyon.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I didn't know that.
Wow.
I was just at Red Rock. We were on our way for spring skiing last year, and my wife, who knows I'm a Beatle nut, points to these photos on the wall. Oh, look. And I went, no way. They were never here. And then there's the article and the whole story. I'm like, because the strongest memory is you, too, doing that music video at Red Rock Canyon. I never knew the Beatles played Red Rock. That's
wow.
And the photos are there to prove it. But anywho, tomorrow night, the Rolling Stones at TCF Stadium. We had a discussion about rain and concerts, and I think one of the best halftime Super Bowl concerts was Prince in the rain during Purple Rain. It's like Purple Rain and then cue the raindrops, and he muscled through that, and that was amazing. So
with his hair all tied up in a nice little bun.
They just had a big concert down the road here last night. Alabama Shakes.
Alabama Shakes at Paisley Park.
A little last-minute invite.
Yeah.
And again, Paisley Park is not a club. You can't book Paisley Park, so I'm sure Prince must be in town. I wonder if Prince will go to the Rolling Stones, and the Stones have had celebrities come on stage. Ooh. I'm not saying. I'm just doing some math here.
Wow.
It's not a long putt to go,
that's true.
Hey, Minnesota, please welcome on stage Prince, and they break into Street Fighting Man.
That'd be fun.
That place would go nuts.
Yeah.
Well, they're already going to have a local choir on board.
We have the choir director
Philip
on our show tomorrow on the Twin Cities Hit Show, because I want to know: have you met the Stones? What are the logistics? What are the marching orders? Can you look them in the eye? How many? Because they have Vocal Essence is the choir, and no spoiler alert, but it is going to be evidently the encore. One of their songs is "You Can't Always Get What You Want,"
right.
And on the record, it starts with that choir. So there will be a choir. Vocal Essence from Minnesota. Evidently, each market that Stones are going through, they tap a local choir. But so now you wonder, if the rain comes too early, do they do no encore? And here's a whole choir of 200 people going home sad-faced.
In wet robes.
You can't always get what you want. Absolutely.
All right, we're losing Brandon down there. We need to start talking baseball
I don't even know how to follow that act, because it's just you guys are just...
Well, tune in tomorrow morning at the Twin Cities Hit Show. We'll talk to Philip Burnell. We'll find out if he's hung out with Mick Jagger. I wonder if they rehearse with the choir, but we'll find out. So the Twins had a rain delay, so now they got to make that up. What?
Yeah, they're going to play.
They had a rain cancellation.
They're going to play double dip tomorrow. It sounds like Trevor May and Phil Hughes. Now, one thing I wanted to go over was, what are they going to do for the Thursday start? And everyone's just kind of, they got an open spot. They need to go get somebody, and everybody wants it to be Jose Barrios. Everybody wants it to be some kind of big-time prospect, and that's not going to happen.
No.
And now the initial thought was that it was going to be tomorrow. They were going to have one of those games started by a fill-in, either the 26th man, who we found out today is going to be Michael Tonkin, of all people. Yeah, I know. I sense your frustration, because you bring up a reliever. You've already got, what do they got, 14 pitchers now, or 13?
I think so. 13.
Unbelievable. Well, so that would make 14 of 26.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make sense to bring up a short guy that can throw an inning or two at a time, or inning or two in the whole day. So it leads me to believe there's a greater plan, and it probably either involves Ricky Nolasco going on the disabled list, or something. Maybe sending in a pitch.
Is it an ankle? Is that his deal?
Or sending another pitcher back, but ultimately needing to bring someone up to start on Thursday that could be flipped again. Tommy Malone. That's who it's going to be, if you ask me, because he started on Sunday.
Okay.
If I'm remembering correctly. They had Monday off at Rochester. So you can start everybody else on normal rest. Pluck Tommy Malone out of there. I don't know if Rochester might be at home by now, so it's a close flight to Boston.
And they love those close flights.
Yeah, you don't want to bring a guy all the way across the country like they didn't do with Arcia. What was it, last year? They afraid to fly him.
Yeah, to San Francisco or wherever it was.
Something like that. So I think that's what it's going to be. I mean, do you have a different read on the situation, or do you kind of see it similar to that?
No, it's got to be Malone.
He's dealing down in AAA,
absolutely dealing in AAA, and there's no reason not to bring him up at this point, especially if the 26th man isn't going to be a starter. I think you're right, Brandon. I think Nolasco goes on the DL. I saw a tweet from Phil Miller today, who's out the Star Tribune, who's out there saying that he talked to Nolasco briefly, and Nolasco said he wasn't sure yet if he was going to.
Sounded kind of evasive, actually.
Yeah, he wasn't sure if he was going to be going on the DL or not. Sounds to me like, if Nolasco thinks he can grit it out and go, then maybe another one of the bullpen arms goes down and Malone comes up.
Well, with a 13-man staff, theoretically, you could also do the Johnny Allstaff approach with maybe Tim Stauffer starting, J.R. Graham starting,
I guess,
and go 3-3-3. I mean, it's an uninspired approach, and quite frankly, you don't want to call it a throwaway game.
No.
And if you do that approach, it kind of becomes that. Now, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of different options. Well, another thing, too, that we'll dive into here in a bit is what they're going to do when some guys start getting healthy, because they can't stick with 13 pitchers forever either. So, yeah, I think, Tommy Malone isn't a drastically different pitcher than when he went down. I mean, you're talking about a guy that's in his age 28 season. He's not somebody new. He's not going to come back throwing 95. He is who he is. But he went down there, got to work, and he was a good soldier, and that's pretty much all you ask for when you send a vet back to AAA.
He's got a good ERA through the last 5 starts in Rochester. Yeah, they're saying that he might, in fact, be the guy.
Yeah, he didn't allow an earned run, I think, through the first, 31 or 32 innings.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. Now, Brandon, do you think his stuff plays at all in the bullpen, or is he strictly a starter?
I mean, I think he's strictly a starter. I think if they were going to do the bullpen thing, they would have stuck with it. He's the kind of guy, if you send him to the bullpen, I mean, he might be able to be a lefty one-out type, but you just don't need to prioritize that. If his stuff plays up, so to speak, I say that with air quotes, I mean, you get his fastball up to 91. I mean, you're still not even Brian Dunsing velocity out there, and you don't have the wipeout slider like Caleb Thielbar has. I just don't see it. I just don't see it.
Yeah.
Deck's starting to fill up a little bit here. The rain appears to be holding off. Our guy cooking the wings, though, still is... there's no line. There's no line yet. And if you come on up here and ask a Twins question, there is a free brewski for you that Patrick's Lips has not touched. So it is unsoiled free beer for you. Otherwise, they do have the Coors special going on. The bucket of beer. You get the 5 beers for $13. And then, of course, the wing special out here at Floyd's on a Twins Tuesday in Victoria. So the game tonight is 6:05 Central start?
Yes. Yep.
And what do we think is going to happen tonight? Now, the Red Sox, they're under playing expectations. Are they going to get angry and smack around the Twins and go, you think you're in first place? You think you're in first place. Bam.
Well, Fenway's traditionally been a house of horrors for this team the last, I don't know,
Oh, more ladies
40
arriving.
years.
Hello,
I mean,
ladies.
It's not been traditionally a place the Twins go to get well, and part of it is the Red Sox have been pretty good in that span, but even when they haven't been, the Twins just don't seem to play well at Fenway. So I hate these 4-game series, too, because it's like, well, how long can we keep this up?
They're going to set the tune, and they're going to make the Twins dance to it.
Yeah, so, I don't know what's going to happen. I could see, what's the matchup today? Buchholz and...
Buckles and Pelfrey. So we're talking about the regression monster and Pelfrey.
Yeah.
And then Buckles and his horrible haircut. We're going to talk about that.
Jeez.
I haven't seen it. What does it look like?
It's basically like if... You can tell me if I'm wrong here. It's like if Macklemore shaved the sides of his head but left the top long and just threw it back. Maybe it's,
I heard about it.
I don't think I've ever seen him with
the
this
style.
hat.
That's supposed to be the
bad.
style.
Yeah, but
that's what the kids are doing.
It's really long in the back, though, it looks ratty. It always looks like he's
long in
walking
the back.
through a
Really
rainstorm.
It might be more like Oswaldo Arcia, but grown out.
Yeah,
Have you seen Bruce Jenner's new haircut?
It's longer.
That it is. Oh, dear.
Yeah, I would say that Buchholz always looks like a wet rat. And
that's true. That's a good point.
You realize there's now etiquette. Should we ever get Bruce Jenner on this program, we can't call him Bruce Jenner. We have to call him Caitlin. Mm-hmm. So when we book Bruce, I know Caitlin, I know you're listening. Come on out to the deck here at Floyd's in Victoria because they got a wing special for you and a bucket of Coors. And you folks out there, again, there's some free beer here for you. We had a couple of great questions last week.
Yeah, definitely.
Got more tables of ladies showing up.
They got to have a question, don't they?
But that lady last week.
Yeah.
How's the trap?
Was that the one whose favorite player was Morneau?
Yeah,
I got
exactly.
a kick out of that. I'm a huge Twins fan.
We got a fan here, folks.
Exactly.
But we got the band coming on at 6 too. Matt McAllister. We're going to get him on here to close the show when he shows up. But he's
Matt McAllister.
McAllister. He plays out here at Floyd's all the time.
He has a college named after him.
Yeah, it's spelled funny, but yeah, a little different from the college. But we're going to get him on to close the show here.
And so the one thing, Patrick, you said you'd wanted to talk about, or one of a number of things, was the hashtag that I have invented. I take credit for it. Pay the man.
Yeah.
So I'll let you describe what it means to you, I guess, and then I can fill in the blanks if there's any left to fill.
Well, just Trevor Plouffe this year has been a different guy than any other version of him that we've seen. Not just at the plate. I'm almost more impressed with his improvement in the field. And this guy was, 3 years ago, I think he was a serious candidate to be designated for assignment. Just flat out released if they had to, because he just wasn't getting it. He was a guy that looked like he didn't care if they won or lost, that he was lost. It looked like he didn't have a roadmap to figure out how to find what he needed to do. And he had that 1 month. He had that hot month where he hit
like July 2012 when he hit, I think, 11 or 12 home runs. or something like that.
He and Willingham went on that spree where they were each hitting home runs, back and forth, and that kind of carried him for a while in the organization. I think that bought him at least another year, and he started showing a little bit more here and a little bit more there, but he still hasn't really put it all together. This year, all of a sudden, he's hitting for power. He's hitting decently in the clutch. I don't have his stats in front of me, but he's one of those guys where you feel confident when he's the guy at the plate. That he's actually a guy you want up in a key situation.
There's no real power batter on the team, though, is there? They're just all kind of.
I mean, Kenny Vargas and
RCF.
They're both in Rochester right now.
Yeah.
But for me, the evolution of Trevor Plouffe, and he's kind of from that era of first round picks with the Chris Parmeleys of the world, where it just flatlined. I mean, that 2005 first round, I believe they got Kyle Waldrop and Matt Fox and Glenn Perkins and Trevor Plouffe all in the same first round. And actually, Phil Hughes was in that first round, too.
Yeah, that's right.
To the Yankees. And so they've still managed to do pretty good by that draft. Now, it was, 7, 8, 9 years in the organization before he turned into anything. Mm-hmm. And that's the patience you have to stress with these high school draft picks, right. Especially if they're toolsy. And Plouffe was, supposed to be a good bat, but I think his defense was supposed to be really good at short too, and it wasn't there. And the hope was he could take over that spot after they inexplicably moved on from JJ Hardy, and the throws were awful. So they moved him to third. I mean, it was basically, what else are we going to do? They put him at third. He was kind of a statue out there. His throws were still erratic, and he's cleared that up. I mean, good lateral movement. You never ever have to worry about a throw anymore. And in his plate appearances, he dictates what the pitcher does to him rather than the other way around. And that's great.
I have a slightly embarrassing anecdote about Plouffe's defense that first year when he came up and was playing shortstop. I was covering a game, and he made 2 errors in the same inning, and ended up leading to the winning run scoring for the opponent. And he obviously felt terrible, but he obviously also had to talk to the reporters because they're important plays. And he's talking, he's describing one of the plays, and I honestly wasn't sure which error he was talking about. And I didn't want, it sounded smart ass when I said it, but I was like, oh, so was that the first error or the second error? And as soon as I said it, I'm like, oh God, he's gonna think I'm twisting the knife. And he kind of sighed and said, "Oh no, it was the second error." And afterwards, I actually did apologize sort of after the scrum broke up. I said, I didn't mean it the way that sounded, and he was cool about it and everything. But it's an interpersonal communications lesson, even for us old guys, we still slip up.
You can totally see that he's comfortable in his own skin, whether it's as a leader, as a player, as a person that has to talk to the media after the game. Now, the driving force behind the hashtag for me is for multiple reasons. Third base, when you have a player that's under 30 years old and he's already become kind of a pillar for you, you have to lock that down. You have to find a way to keep that guy. Now, everyone's
pay the man.
Exactly. And so everyone says, well, what about Miguel Sano? Don't worry about Miguel Sano. He'll hit enough to DH. He'll hit enough to play first base. He'll hit enough to play the outfield if they want to move him out there. Don't worry about it. And it's a prospect. Your prospects bust all the time. So if Sano forces his way up here and you got to play him at DH, that's good. That's actually a good thing. It's a good problem to have. Now, the complicating factors become where Plouffe is in his arbitration and how many years you'd need to lock him up now versus how old he is. I believe if you sign him to a 4-year deal right now, you'd take two years of his free agency period and wipe him clean. But then you're also signing him until he's like 32. So the main resistance that I got to this was, well, why don't you just wait the 2 years and sign him when he's a free agent? Well, then one, you have to sign a deal that's going to commit to him through age 35 at market rate. I mean, who wants to do that? That's a risky proposition in and of itself. So if you can lock him up, and he's about to get really expensive via arbitration, like $8-9 million expensive. Yeah. So I was on that train, I would say 6 weeks ago. And now everybody's banging the drum, so it's kind of fun to be the little drummer boy that was out front of everybody else.
He's got the biggest slugging percentage, so that's good, 488.
So he's got that going for him.
Yeah, and that's what you want, right? 279 is his batting average, and pretty much the whole team is in the the high 200s.
Yeah, no standout contact guy. I mean, actually, if you look at that's kind of a fun subject too. Is the great divide when you look at the batting order, because it's boom, 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 boom. The first 4 guys every single night. It depends. No matter where you feel about Joe Mauer, at least he's going to give you a good plate appearance. Yeah. And then after that, it's Eddie Rosario, Eduardo Escobar, Suzuki batting 5th. We've actually joked about that on Twitter. It's just
nuts.
I mean, he's got like a 670 OPS, 630, 640 OPS right now, batting 5th. And that's where too the sustainability of this run comes into question. Is how long can you bat guys who are barely hitting their weight 5th? I mean, Eddie Rosario's on a pretty influential, solid run, but he swings at everything, and that's going to get exploited just like it did with Kenny Vargas.
Absolutely.
Danny Santana, again, you get him 0-2 and he's done. 45 strikeouts, 2 walks. Ugh. I cannot emphasize how terrible that is right now. And so that's where that divide comes into play. Is just, I think, when you talk about sustainability or lack thereof, it's just they don't have the balance in the lineup. So you'll see Paul Molitor move Shane Robinson up the second and try to lengthen it out. So you've got competent bats top to bottom. And it'll get better as they bring guys back. Kenny Vargas, Josmiel Pinto, Oswaldo Arcia. But it's just not there right now.
Well, I guess the sustainability question is answered in how you feel about whether what they're doing right now is their track record, or whether they're living up to their past performance, or maybe these guys with the 640 OPSs are going to step that up. I don't know. I mean, Suzuki, for all of his value that they got from him last year, that was a career year for him.
That's not the kind of guy he is at all. And it's just the expectation that he will be that guy and continue to be that guy it's misguided at best.
What we're seeing is sort of a career norm for him this year, as opposed to last year, it was a career year for him. So there's one guy. I mean, look at Escobar. He's got a 601 OPS right now, and
31-3 strikeout to walk ratio.
Right, and the manager is in love with the guy. He wants to play him as much as possible.
He's DHing him, for crying out loud.
So, is he going to get better? He, last year he had 38 doubles or whatever
really
it was.
Nice year. I mean,
why does the manager like him then?
It's his willingness to probably go out there and play wherever he needs him.
Yeah, that's a big part of it.
I think.
But then why DH him? You don't need to reward a guy by putting him in a position where he can't take advantage of his position flexibility.
So
that leads us to.
I want to dive into what are you going to do at shortstop here?
I guess right now I think I'm about done with the Santana experiment for this year at least, or for right now. I think it's worth sending him to AAA and getting him some confidence back at least, and riding it out with Escobar for a while. He was one of their best defenders last year. Not to mention he hit well when he was playing shortstop. Maybe part of the issue this year is that he's playing left field and he's DHing and he's not comfortable. He's not playing a spot that he's comfortable at.
You got a gentleman grabbing a beer. You got to ask a question, though, if you're going to get a beer. You got a question for the Twins?
It's Pokey,
about the Twins?
Who does Santana replace?
Irvin Santana. That's a good question, actually. Thank you.
That's a good question. Grab a beer.
That's totally
take
beer
two,
worthy.
I guess.
That's
worth
totally beer worthy.
That's a 2-for-1 question.
And he won our jersey, too. The guy just loves the Twins Tuesday crew.
That's good. We like having him here.
For me, it's Pelfrey. It just is. I mean, unless they're going to jerk Trevor May around, and that's not unreasonable because he's got options, because he's a kid, and because he's got an ERA over 5 right now.
Yeah.
Not because he should have an ERA over 5. I think that there's a chance that it'll be May, but for me, it's Pelfrey. You got him. You could trade him. I mean, he's got 1 year, the rest of this year on his deal. You don't have anything invested in him. I mean, you could send him to the bullpen, which I would prefer because he's got good high-end velocity and a good split change. Those 2 pitches would be great in the bullpen. But if somebody comes calling needs a number 5 starter to eat up innings for the rest of the year, and you can move him and slot Santana in there without jerking around Kyle Gibson, who's safe. Ricky Nolasco's safe because of his salary, and he's actually pitched just fine since the first blow-up. It's Pelfrey. It's the name I keep coming back to. It wouldn't stun me if it's Trevor May, but Pelfrey for me, for sure.
Yeah, any answer you give comes with the caveat that someone could get hurt between now and then.
They may well do that.
It could be Nolasco, rolling his ankle or blowing out his hamstring or whatever, and then you need all 5 guys. But yeah, I gotta agree with you. It's Pelfrey's the logical choice. Given the way the Twins handle May, though, it could be him.
Do you agree with that, sir? Nod your head. Yes. Yes.
Right. Great.
He agrees. All right. Cheers. So enjoy that beer, that Coors Light Special.
Looks like we got one last break to take before we come back home and take it home. Does that sound right?
I think
Sounds right to me. We're out here live at Floyd's again. It's a Twins Tuesday. A couple of clouds in the sky, but the patio is starting to fill up. There will be live music again out here on the deck. So we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Come on and join us.
Reach for this.
Just when you thought it was safe to go back online.
Just turn it on. That took a very PG direction.
Along comes this hit show.
I'm constantly burping on stage.
Hey, you heard about Madonna, right?
Twin Cities Hit Show with Rusty, Courtney, and Chuck.
Had she fallen to the ground and her eyes rolled into the back of her head, what would you, Tim Mahoney, have done?
I'd have tried to make out with her.
Nice. Get in line.
The Twin Cities Hit Show with Rusty, Courtney, and Chuck airs live daily, 9:30 to 10:30 on the Alive and Social Network.
Ever swallowed a bug or choke like Courtney on stage?
Yeah.
I meant to do this.
Join longtime radio personality and producer Kelly Guest and friend, CEO of Fantasy Gifts, Colleen Bertino, as they talk about all things sex, men, women. Lend them your ears and learn everything you wanted to know about sex and intimacy. Only here on the Alive and Social Network.
Into some spontaneous dancing out here on the patio. What, Patrick, you felt a raindrop? You felt one raindrop?
No, it just kind of feels like rain, though.
Yeah.
It smells like rain.
A little overcast, but we're out here on the deck. Last week we moved the party inside, but Twins Tuesday, every Tuesday, out here at Floyd's in Victoria, and if you've not ventured out this way, it does have one of the great patios and decks available here in Minnesota. The summer season is so short. Let's celebrate it every chance we can. We got the guy on the grill waiting for, there's still no line, but they got some grilled wing specials going today. You get a dozen for 11, 2 dozen for 17, 3 dozen for 27. You do the math. Get 3 dozen and party on. Coming up at 6 o'clock, they will have live music out here at Floyd's. We believe it's the Rolling Stones. Is that right?
Might be the Rolling Stones. Matt McAllister.
Pat McAllister.
He's supposed to be coming on with us. I don't think he's here yet. So
well,
we'll see
screw Pat McAllister.
I want to give a shout out to the guy in the Neil Broughton jersey. That's
nice, right?
Representing my hometown, Roseville, Minnesota.
That's right.
So
nice.
Fantastic with the Neil Broughton.
That looks like it's been around the block or two, like it was a brand new during...
I think it's vintage.
Yeah, during the actual year. It's as old as he is. Wow, that jersey is 79 years old.
Oh, I'm not going to protect you for that one. That's bad news.
He's got the North Star hat on.
I like it. I like it.
Absolutely.
Who's going to win that Stanley Cup?
They're still playing hockey?
The Blackhawks, our Wild Wednesday show, we break it down. I'm about to get kicked off the show for rooting for the Blackhawks, but hey, they're going to take it.
It is what it is.
Phil Hughes thinks the Lightning, I think.
Yeah, he's a huge Tampa Bay
Lightning fan. Yeah.
You know, we were talking about the snow. Did you hear that Garth Brooks had to cancel 2 of his shows because of the Stanley Cup?
Well,
so if you're
at a time,
did he have 10 more going though? I mean,
he got one of them in, then he had to cancel 2 of them but think about this: if you're the owner of the Rays right? That's who's down there, the Tampa Bay team.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, what are the chances of us ever? Sure, book Garth Brooks. We're not.
Right.
Sternberg, I think it is.
I think, in fact, the Astros this year, I think Taylor Swift has that big tour this fall, and she booked Minute Maid Park during the ALCS. And when that came out, the Astros, in March, sent a note to their season ticket holders or whatever saying, this could be moved if the Astros in the playoffs. And everyone laughed.
No indication.
The Astros in the playoffs. And now here they sit with the best record in the American League.
So what do you do then? That's a good question.
It's a good problem to have.
Yeah, it's a good problem.
Do you upset all those angry Taylor Swift
Move
fans?
them over to the Reliance Stadium where the Texans play.
Imagine what angry Taylor Swift fans are like too. I mean,
screeching. It's got to be shrill. It's got to be very shrill.
So should we should start bringing this home with a little more shortstop talk?
Yeah.
Do it. What do you got?
So.
What are your thoughts?
If you're not going to keep running Danny Santana out there, and I don't think you can, because he's at this point.
He's almost an automatic out.
Every single part of his game is just terrible. He would get picked off at first, frozen. I mean, Mark Burley is a fantastic defensive pitcher, but frozen. Solid. I mean, it was Ice Cube. I think here's my theory, and then I think we'll get yours too. Mm-hmm. You could bring up Jorge Polanco from Double-A Chattanooga. He's going to give you a better at bat. He's at least steady. He's got, again, he's not a crazy, walks and strikeouts guy. He doesn't have a ton of pop. But when he came up and faced Joakim Soria last year in Texas, he took a big league at bat. You can't say that about Danny Santana right now. Now, I have a theory of what else they could do, but I want to hear what you would do first and foremost.
Well, that sample size on Polanco obviously is tiny because he had, 6 plate appearances last year when he came out. But I agree. The impression that he left you with was this is a kid who's not overwhelmed. This game isn't too big for him. Now maybe he was still, just running on adrenaline and eventually to catch up to him. He's got a 781 OPS right now at Double-A, which that would play up here obviously.
Especially at second base.
He's also got 10 errors.
Or short, rather.
Yeah, he's also got 10 errors, which is the same number I think that Santana has, or is Santana up to 12
and
now.
on much less manicured infields.
Yeah, that's
with
true.
More questionable scorers.
Yeah, and a shorter season so far too, though. But anyway, he's 21 years old. He's a switch hitter. Those are both, positives for him.
40-man guy, too.
And he's a 40-man guy. So I guess if I'm going to dip down in the system, that's the guy. The shortstop they've got at AAA is a 28-year-old Diaz guy
Argenis Diaz.
Yeah, he's first year in the system. He's an organizational guy. He's not projected to be a big league player. So if you're going to get anyone from the minors, it's Polanco. I don't know that I'd make that move yet.
Yeah.
I think I would see what they can do with Escobar.
Well, my other theory, that perfectly lends into what else you could do. You could put Arcia back in left, move Arcia in. You've already got Nunez in the house that can play short, so you can. I say can
you
loosely.
Have to,
if you really need to. Yeah. So I mean, you don't need to bring up another shortstop. You got to get rid of a pitcher eventually too. But if you bring Arcia back, and they might not, they might keep him at AAA. That's an option to put him in left or DH him. Mm-hmm. And keep Shane Robinson left for all I care, or Eddie Rosario. There's so many moving parts that if you don't want to DH, or if you don't want to put Arcia back in the outfield right away, you could DH him too. Now, there are people that will say, maybe you keep Arcia at AAA. Well, then you're basically saying who deserves to be up in the big leagues more, Danny Santana or Oswaldo Arcia. Arcia hitless so far in his rehab stint through 11 plate appearances, or 11 at bats.
Yeah.
So not off to the best of starts, but as long as he's taking good swings, they're not going to care too much. For me, you bring back Arcia because you need that thunder in the bottom of the order, and there's nothing Danny Santana is doing right now that makes him look like a competent major league hitter.
What's Jason Bartlett doing?
Whatever he was doing before.
He's the clubhouse chemist.
Working on his golf
chemistry.
game.
Oh, man, get his chemistry set.
I was at that last the Boston game here in town last Wednesday, which what a wonderful day that was.
I was there
perfect
too.
weather, low 80s, zero humidity, and just a fun game to watch. It was a back and forth kind of a thing.
Yeah,
but Boston's going to be angry, aren't they, tonight? They're going to be like, screw you and all your attention. Screw you and your number one best whatever. They're going to go, now it's a reality check. It's gut check time for the Twins.
They did just get swept by the Twins. That's true. I know it's an old saw from Tom Kelly, but momentum is your next day's starting pitcher. So there's only so much that can carry over from series to series, and I just think that you look at the matchups and go by that. So
all right,
Buchholz and Pelfrey.
Well, Boston can't pitch. I mean, that's what they don't do, but. that offense won't quit when they get going. If Bogart starts swinging good, if Ramirez picks it back up, if Ortiz gets going, that's it.
Is it important for them to win tonight to have momentum? You're saying it doesn't matter.
They've been, like we said, they've been so resilient when it comes to losing a game and bouncing back. So I'm not going to panic on one loss. If they lose 4 straight, then we got to worry a little bit.
Got the doubleheader because of the rain cancellation. What do you got going on, Brandon? Anything you want to plug? Where can the folks catch you? And
at Brandon_Warren on Twitter, and I'll fill you in from there. I'm all over the map.
Hey, Patrick, how do folks get your stuff?
Get me on Twitter. It's at Donnelly612. 2 N's, 2 L's.
And don't forget Twins Tuesday Facebook page. Check it out. We'll let you know about all the specials. Also, TwinsTuesdays.com's coming together. Check it out here.
Is that available? I tried to find Tuesdays.
Yeah, it's coming up here.
Soon.
I'm going to have it up in the next couple days
soon.
here.
Hashtag soon. And then
soon.
Big show tomorrow on the Twin Cities Hit Show. Patrick Hammer was meteorologist here in town. He's going to announce on our show where he's going. We've got
I know where that is.
We got Benita Sakar on the show. We got Brad Satin. We got Julie Nelson, I think, calling in. We got Chris Schaefer calling in. We got the choir director for the Rolling Stones coming on. And then Thursday we have our own deck show, which Kat Perkins from The Voice will be joining us on that deck show on the Twin Cities Hit Show. But it's been a Tuesday. Twins are getting ready to swing away. Go Twins. Floyd's does not stop. The party continues. Live music starting here in about 10 minutes. Stay dry, everyone.
See you next week.